All right, y'all. We're gonna start. Allahu Akbar. Bismillah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka nabudu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina sirata mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim. Walad-dallin. Ya Allah, please expand for me my chest and ease for me my task, and untie the night from my tongue, that they may understand my speech. Ameen. All right, y'all. Today we're talking about the science of Allah. Science of Allah. All right, so tonight, especially for the new people in here, I'm asking y'all to think like a serious human being, okay? No one in this room is going to be asked to become a Muslim. We're here to investigate the foundation that is under our feet, ladies and gentlemen. Before we argue about religion, scripture, culture, or identity, we have to ask the deeper question. Why is there anything at all? Why does the universe have order? Why does consciousness exist? Why do moral truths feel binding to us? The gravity feels binding, just like gravity is binding to a rock that is fallen or a stone. Why does the human being search for meaning as if meaning were not optional? These are questions that we need to ask. Most of you have lived inside a story your entire life without checking the foundation. That's not a knock, that's normal. The story says the universe is here for no reason, and life is just a chemical accident. And this consciousness that we have is a side effect of meat, and morality is whatever the loudest tribe decides this decade, that's what your morality is. It's random, right? That's what they say. I'm not saying that that's truth. And most of us have absorbed that story from school, from the internet, from the laughter of people who think they're super smart, who treat the question as settled, like they just know, right? You never sat down and worked through the actual proofs. You never tested the claims, and you lived without examining it. Tonight, we're going to walk into the foundation with our eyes wide open, okay? We bring no assumptions to the floor. We bring no inherited dogma. We bring reason, observation, and genuine honesty, okay? We ask, what must be true for anything else to be true? Think about that question, y'all. What must be true for anything else to be true? We identify that and we follow that line wherever it leads, okay? That is the science of Allah, the disciplined investigation of the reality that stands underneath every other reality. And inshallah, by the end of this lecture, you will know what the word Allah means, why the existence of Allah is not a matter of, just some cultural taste, a matter of metaphysical necessity, and what the answer demands of you the way that you live tomorrow morning, okay? Now, let's do word alchemy. There's 3 words: science of Allah, okay? Each word carries weight. Each one must be opened before the body of the lecture can stand on it. Now, we start with science. The Latin root is scientia, from the verb scire, which means to know. But scire does not mean to feel, to believe, or to assume. Scire means to know by separation, to cut, to draw a line between what is true and what is not true, what is real and what is imagined, what stands under pressure and what collapses. The man who has science is the man who can tell the difference between a thing that has its own existence and a thing that borrows existence from somebody somewhere else. Science is the disciplined study of reality through observation, through reason, through measurement, and through proof. In Arabic, the word for this kind of knowledge is ilm, I-L-M. Arabic is the language of the Quran. This is the book that Muslims hold as the speech of God. The word ilm means a certain knowledge backed by evidence separated from opinion. It comes from the same conceptual ground as the Latin word scientia, science. To know is to distinguish. Now, to know is also to draw the line. Science is the human capacity to think clearly about what's real and what's not. Lab coats and microscopes, that's a bar, lab coats and microscopes. Lab coats and microscopes serve that capacity as tools. The instrument is downstream of the mind that wields it. The man who refuses that capacity when the question turns to God has surrendered his most powerful tool at the exact moment that it matters. He is asleep with his eyes wide open. Now, we tackled science. Now we go to the word of, a small word, a working word. It does the heavy lifting in the title. Of marks origin, possession, derivatation. The science of medicine is the science that belongs to medicine. The science that medicine produces, the science we owe to the disciplined study of the body. The science of Allah is the science that belongs to the study of God, the disciplined examination of what God must be, what God could not be, and what God has revealed himself to be. Of is the bridge between the method and the subject. It tells you the work is real. It tells you the subject is studyable. It tells you tonight we are running an investigation, not a feeling exercise. We want knowledge. Then the word Allah, the Arabic word for God. Listen, y'all, this is very precise. The same word is used by Arab-speaking Christians in Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. And this has been used by them for 2,000 years. Allah is not a tribal God. It's not an Arab God or a Muslim-owned deity. The word is built from two parts. Al, meaning the. Al means the. Ilah means God worthy of worship. Al-Ilah, the God. The one true God who has no partners, no equals, no rivals. Okay? Allah is the description that admits no plural. There is no English plural. There is no Arabic plural. The word itself refuses competition. There is the God, and that is the end of that particular conversation. Now, the three words together, the science of Allah, the disciplined investigation through reason, evidence, and revelation, the one necessary being who stands as the foundation of all that exists. Tonight is a study. We're studying tonight, y'all. A discipline, a pursuit of certainty about the deepest question the human mind can ask. Why is there anything at all? And what does the answer demand of the one who's asking? Remember what I'm saying right now. I'm going to come back to that. Why is there anything at all? And what is the demand of the one who's asking? A huge reason why people lean towards atheism, because of that last thing that I said. What's demanded of the one who asks or who knows? Now, let's get into some definitions. The central distinction is dependent versus independent, okay? What is dependent and what is not dependent? Hold those two words in your mind. This entire talk tonight rests on the difference between what's dependent and what's not dependent. The dependent thing is anything whose existence relies on something else. It did not bring itself into existence. It does not sustain itself. It cannot explain itself. It points beyond itself for its entire reality. An independent thing is something whose existence relies on nothing. Nada. Zilch. It didn't begin and it cannot end. It has no cause. It's the reason other things have causes. Now, look around where you're at, your environment, your room, wherever you at, right? Your body is dependent. It relies on cells. Cells are dependent. They rely on molecules. Molecules are dependent. They rely on atoms. Atoms are dependent. They rely on subatomic particles and these laws of physics that governs them, right? Those laws are also dependent. They rely on the deeper structure of the universe. The universe itself is dependent. It is expanding and it will end. This is all well-known, scientifically documented information. Now, every chair that you sit in or that you've ever sat in was dependent. Every meal that you've ever eaten was dependent. Every thought, every little thought that pops into your mind was dependent on your brain. The brain dependent on the body dependent on its conditions on calibrated cosmos that you did not design. Capiche, y'all follow me right now? Run that chain back and keep running it back. You arrive at a hard choice. Either reality is built on infinite line of dependent things, right? Each one leaning on the link before forever, right? Is leaning on something forever. What started this? It started that. It can't stop, right? there's no foundation, or there's one independent reality at the bottom holding the whole structure up. Which one are you, where we at with it, right? So an infinite line, dependent things, infinite line of dependent things, it really explains nothing, okay? If every link in the chain needs prior links and there's no first link, then nothing in the chain has the right to exist. And we're just talking about logic here, okay? The chain is borrowing existence from a lender who does not exist, according to the best atheist, or the atheist with the strongest argument against God. The whole structure collapses the moment you ask, where does the borrowing begin? Okay? So there must be one independent reality, something that does not borrow existence, something that has being in itself, something that is the source from which everything else receives its being. Now, that independent reality is what Muslims call Allah, what Christians call God, what Jews call Hashem, which in Hebrew means Hebrew, it means Hashem means the name. I think that's pretty dope. It's just a respectful way of speaking of him without speaking his name directly. Philosophers across history have called him the necessary being, okay? The ground of being, the first cause, the unmoved mover. The labels differ, but the meaning is the same. The reference, it doesn't differ, it's the same. Every serious mind that has ever taken existence serious has arrived at the same logical destination. Now, here, I want you to listen and hear the definition closely and cleanly. Allah is the necessary being. Listen, y'all, I'm going to say that again. Allah is the necessary being, the one, the independent reality, the one whose existence is not borrowed, not derived, not caused, not contingent, and not optional. Everything else in the universe exists because Allah gave it existence. Allah exists because Allah is existence. Allah exists because Allah is existence. There's no scenario in which Allah is not. There is no condition under which Allah depends. There's no force that can remove Allah. There is no time before Allah, no space outside of Allah, and no power above our beloved God. Now, this is the definition. Strip away every cultural image that you can. Strip away this cartoon old white dude in the sky. Strip away an angry tribal god of a village preacher. Strip away the feel-good universe god of internet woo-woo spirituality. Strip it away. Strip away the silent watchmaker of deist philosophy who supposedly wound the clock and began to walk away. I don't mean to laugh at this, but strip it all away. What stands underneath is the necessary being. The Arabic teaching has a name for this. It's called Tawheed. Tawhid, Tawheed, from the root UHD, absolute oneness of Allah. Listen, the absolute oneness of Allah. Not one in the way that you can count one apple, right? 2 apples, 3 apples. One as unique, the one. The is the definite article, is pointing at the only, right? So this is the unique, the unmatched, the unparalleled, the unrepeatable, indivisible. There is no second to Allah. There is no equal to Allah. There is no helper that Allah needs. There's no part of Allah that depends on another part. He is one in essence, one in lordship, one in his right to be worshipped, and one in his name and attributes. Tawheed is the cleanest metaphysical position available to the human mind. It says one ultimate reality, one final authority, one necessary foundation, one creator behind all creations. Everything else is downstream of this single proof. Give me a second, y'all. I need to throw on my hoodie and get a sip of water. 1 second. All right, I'm back, y'all. Let me get a little sippy sip. Little Saratoga. Hey, it's kind of good, though. I ain't gonna lie. All right, y'all. Listen, when you grasp Tawheed, polytheism becomes incoherent. You cannot have 2 necessary beings. 2 necessary beings would limit each other, which would make them both dependent on the line that divides them. Sorry. The moment you have two, you have neither. Necessity admits to no rival. Okay? Now, when you grasp Tawheed, idol worship becomes laughable. An idol is a dependent object, okay? It was carved, it was placed, it can be moved, it can be broken, it can be burned. To worship a dependent thing is as if it were independent, is to commit a category error so deep that sincerity, the highest of sincerity, cannot repair it. You can be sincerely wrong about everything that matters. Now, when you grasp Tawheed, the modern idol comes into focus, right? I'm gonna give you practical things that are idols that comes into focus. Money, which is dependent. A dollar was printed. A dollar's value can change. It can be inflated or deflated. It can vanish in an hour. Ask Venezuela. To worship money is the old sin in modern times, right? That was what people have that's always rivaled God in the minds and the hearts of weaker people. Even us, I was a weak person like that at one point, worshiping money. Okay. Well, what does that mean, Mike Rashid? You like praying to the money? No. However, you are positioning yourself to something other than God every day, all day, as the dominant factor or the dominant force in the dominant force in your life. That is idol worshiping. That is polytheism at its finest. Now, money and status, that's another thing. That's another idol that people worship. And status, once again, is dependent. It rests on the opinion of human beings is going to die, right? Pleasure is dependent. It rests on the chemistry that fades. Even the self, people worship themselves. I've been that person as well. The self you call, I came from a womb that came from another, from your mother, from a woman that came from a chain that goes back from other people, back to dust, okay? Now, the worship of self is worship of a borrowed reality. You don't know if you're going to be alive tomorrow or the next day or the next day. So when you worshiping yourself, is to bow before a leaf and call it the tree. That's what you're doing. Tawheed is the spine of clear thinking. It separates the necessary from the dependent. It refuses to confuse the two. It teaches the mind to look past every created thing and trace the line back to the one who gave all things the place to be. Now, without Tawheed, the mind has nowhere to stand, no foundation. It floats from idol to idol to idol. It flows from dependent thing to dependent thing, never reaching the floor. With Tawheed, the mind has a foundation. Every other truth becomes orderable around the one truth. This is the science, y'all. This is the science. We're here to study science tonight, all right? Y'all with me? Let's ask this metaphysical question that sits underneath every other question that you've ever asked. What must be true for anything to be true at all? What must be true for real? Ask this question to yourself. What must be true for anything else to be true? The answer has a name in every language. Tonight, we use his name of Allah, right? Because we're working in the tradition of his final revelation. And his final revelation was in Arabic. But the reality, the name points to not the property of one people. The reality is the property of every person who has ever drawn breath in the universe that they did not make, okay? Right before we started, a brother just happened to catch me at the right time in the DMs, and he's being pulled and drawn to his nature, to Islam, right? But he's like, yeah, but didn't the Arabs enslave black people? Yes, there were Arabs that did enslave some black people. That has nothing to do with Islam, okay? Were they Muslims? Some of them were. That does not reflect Islam. Islam forbids that. And then when there was slavery in those days, it was not what you know of as chattel slavery. You see, we have been programmed with how the Europeans did us to where we think that that's what the entire world did with slavery. That was very unique to what they did to us, what the white people did to us at that time. Arabs enslaved blacks, blacks enslaved blacks, blacks enslaved Arabs. Did you know that? Every people on the continent enslaved other people. But here's the thing. You can say that it's inhumane to enslave people, and I agree with that. However, We don't live 2,000 years ago when that was a normal thing. It was a normal thing to enslave people, but they did not whip people like they did here. They did not take people across the world and eradicate their religion, their names, right? Their culture, their tongues. That was unique to what the Europeans did to Afro-Asiatics, okay? So now, let's say a Muslim does do something like that. It has nothing to do with Islam. A Muslim is not perfect. Islam is perfect. We're humans, we're people. So, and if you break down numbers, the Arabs, and peace to my Arab brothers and sisters out there, that's not Islam. There are Arab people that are Muslim, but Islam does not belong to Arabs, okay? Islam belongs to no man. We are all a part of it, the entire civilization of Earth. Islam has existed before an Arab, an African, or anything. It existed before human beings existed on this planet. What Islam means is peace. It means a peaceful submission to the will of God, to the will of Allah. All of God's creatures submit to the will of God, okay? So that's what Islam is. It does not belong to a person. So even within the Ummah, within the Muslim community, when you see a Muslim telling another person, "Oh, he's not a real Muslim," are you? Because who are you to tell another human being what's in their heart? Knock it off. All right, now, we have gotten to the point of this discussion to where we have to diagnose the spiritual disease, right? And that is this. You lived your whole entire life inside of a universe that you didn't make, with a body that you did not design, with a mind that you did not engineer, with a moral sense that you did not invent. You did not consult on the laws of physics. You did not vote on the constants and the mathematical equations. You did not approve the conditions that allow life. You know how specific and how wild that is? You arrived here already breathing, already conscious, already inside of a story that was running before you even woke up. Most modern men live as if none of this needs explaining. In my opinion, that's a disease. That is a deep metaphysical immaturity in sleep. The conditions of going through life surrounded by miracle after miracle and treating it like it's just, it better be there. That's crazy to me. Look at how the modern man is taught to think. He's taught to think the universe is a brute fact, that existence needs no explanation, that order is random. Imagine that, order, random, right? Consciousness is an accident and morality is a preference. That meaning is a story you tell yourself when the silence gets too loud, right? That God is just, a hypothesis that we don't really need. People really think that. They really believe that deep in their hearts. The modern man is taught that through this atmosphere, not argument, that's the reality, right? He absorbs the school, the screen, the laughter of clever people who treat the deepest question of the human existence as this is just a fact. This is already settled. We're too smart. We're so smart, we know, right? Right? He never sat down and worked through the proofs. He never did that. He never tested the claims. He never asked whether the inheritance that he received from his culture was true. He don't know these things. He lived inside it, this universe, without examining anything. That cost is heavy. There are 7 signs of metaphysical sleep. Mark the symptoms of these signs in your own life. They are the daily evidence of a soul that has lost its foundation. You'll see them in your own behavior the moment that you start looking honestly at your life and taking inventory of your life and everything in it and around it. Number 1 is this. Y'all write this down if you can. Number 1 is the inability to give a clear answer to the question, why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there something rather than nothing? The modern man either shrugs it off or, he'll say something that he heard from a podcast, from some scientist, right? He cannot follow the question to its floor. He cannot do that. He has done none of the work. Sign 2 is dismissal of moral conviction as preference. He says rape is wrong, and the next breath says morality is just a social construct. You can't have it both ways, sir, right? He has not noticed that his 2 statements cancel each other out. He lives in the biggest contradiction, and they act like they're so sophisticated. These are the so-called intellectual types, right? the people of academia. They call themselves, there's a group of people that call themselves the academic dark web, dark something. Yeah, it's like Sam Harrison, Jordan Peterson, Eric Weinstein, who I know, his brother, another Weinstein, and I think Joe Rogan, right? They're so sophisticated. You know what the word sophistication means? Where it comes from? It was a group of people called the sophists back in ancient Greece. And the sophists were skilled, they're skilled in the art of rhetoric and just arguing. Sophisticated. That's where that comes from. Little sidebar. But anyway, sign number 3 of this metaphysical sleep is the treatment of meaning as something you invent rather than something you discover. Intellectual dark web. That's what they're called. Intellectual dark web. The word intellectual means nothing to me. Okay. For the record. All right. So sign 3 is treating meaning, right, that's been here for eons, is something that you came up with. You didn't just discover that. You came up with that. You got that figured out. So this modern person, this intellectual, builds a life around hobbies, brands, identities, goals, and he calls that meaning. When the hobbies, when they bore him and he gets tired of doing them, right, and the brand fails and the identities crack, he has no deep ground to fall back on. Sign number 4, the worship of dependent things. Okay. He pours his soul into money, into status, into his body, into sex, into all of the images as if they were the ultimate beings and positions for one's own salvation or peace of mind. He becomes furious. He's pissed when they fail him, right? Because he's confused the gift with the giver. Now, sign number 5, the fear of death as annihilation. He cannot speak of dying. Just the thought of dying terrifies him, right? He medicates the thought when it comes up. He surrounds himself with youth, novelty. Some of these guys even try to extract young people's blood and put it in their blood that they think they live longer. I'm dead serious. Look up Brian Johnson, all right? This distraction, right? All of these things that they're doing because the alternative is to face a horizon that he has no map for, right? Sign 6, the inability to mourn properly. Grief presupposes meaning. Grief presupposes meaning. So if your son was if he's just a temporary arrangement of atoms, his death is just a temporary rearrangement. Like, who cares? The modern man cannot accept that conclusion, so he weeps with convictions his philosophy cannot explain for him, cannot provide an answer for, cannot give any kind of solace for. Sign number 7, the compulsive need for distraction. Silence is too loud, is deafening. Silence asks questions that he cannot answer, and he's not willing to answer. He don't even want to hear it. So he fills every gap with content, with noise, scrolling, chatter, other people. He's become a man who cannot be alone with his own mind, right? Because in his own mind, he keeps asking what he came to do and on whose authority. You can't answer that when you don't have knowledge of self and of God. Now, there is a cost to this disease, right? The disease happens. It's not like it just happens and it's isolated to the people it happens to. Read across the layers of your life. The disease does not stay in your head, right? It runs into your body, into your marriage, your relationships, your children, your neighborhood, cities, and civilizations. Personal costs. The interior life of the unmoored man is governed by anxiety, depression, all of these things. He knows he matters, but he just can't say why. He just don't know. He don't get it, right? He medicates the gaps with substances, with screens, with sex, with work, or with anger. Some men, they just go all out and just end it. They just can't deal with it, right? So like straight bona fide, right to the point suicide, and then others kill themselves slowly. Both are the final logic of a worldview that says nothing has weight, nothing matters, there's no meaning. Spiritual cost. A man who has cut himself off from the necessary being is a man who cut himself off from his own root. He's tried to be his own foundation, right? He's failed. He's exhausted from carrying a weight that he's never built himself up to carry alone. He calls his exertion burnout and blames his job, He blames people, but the problem runs so much deeper than what you do for a living. The metaphysics is the actual ground of this exhaustion. Y'all gotta like ride with me, y'all. This is real. Let's look at this rational cost that this costs you. Where there's no transcendent moral law, your marriage is just a contract, is not a covenant. You feel me? When there's no transcendent moral law, when there's no God, when you don't fear God, nothing is meaningful to you, right? Everything is transactional. Children, they become just accessories instead of a trust, right? I talked to a buddy of mine today who I haven't talked to in many years. He had a kid 14 years ago. I haven't talked to him since way before then. No, 12 years ago. I'm sorry. He said his kid's 12. I was like, welcome to the party, brother. And he said, this is the greatest thing. And I already knew what he was going to say. Why, right? Because he's a man. He's a man's man. Like I'm a man's man. And I know why kids are great for me. Children, men and women are designed to have children. They anchor a man. Okay. I'm not a woman, so I can't say what it does for a woman. But for a man, it is your gravity. A lot of us without kids would be menaces to society, dead, prison, whatever. Okay. A child will anchor you. Listen, a man who doesn't have responsibility is unaligned. So they're going to do a lot of weird things. A child gives you responsibility. And of course, it's exactly what he said, alhamdulillah. So children, when you don't have that, when you're not grounded in the knowledge of God, they're just there. They're just an accessory, you know? And your friendships, they're just transactional. They're not brotherhood. I have a person in my life that I thought was a friend. And, you know, people say they believe in God. But saying that is just one thing. Like, what is your belief system? Okay, I could tell you mine. As a Muslim, I can tell you my belief system. It's very specific and there's a lot to it. So therefore, my brotherhood, my relationships with my friends, it's a real covenant. If my brother asks me for $50 and I only got 100, he's getting half. He has half of mine. I don't care. My woman can get mad. I have a covenant. Just like I have a covenant with her, I have a covenant with my brothers. Okay? When you don't have God and you don't have a foundation, a spiritual foundation, a spiritual system, something like Islam, what's a friendship? So with a friend of mine, this buddy of mine, who I've known for many years, as time was going, I realized, I said, I don't know if this is really my friend. I think this is a transactional relationship. And it bothered me deeply because I thought we were friends. I have genuine love for this brother. Now, if he was sure right now, he said, like, nah, bro, it's all love. These are just words. What do you do in your actions to show that? My real friends, we see each other often. Not every day, not even every week, but we all have pacts of how often we see each other. So a few of my brothers who I haven't seen in a few weeks, I'm seeing right after this talk, right? Nobody goes but so far without a sit down. How are you, bro? What's new with you? You know what I'm saying? So this is when you have God in your life versus saying, God, yeah, I believe. It's just words. And remember, y'all, language, this oratory form of communication is a corrupted form of communication. Actions, I believe none of what I hear. Now, with people who adhere to a covenant, who I am in covenant with, I believe what they say because we are held to a high moral standard. But a lot of people, I try to give the benefit of the doubt to, but if their words don't align with their actions, it doesn't surprise me, okay? Unfortunately. Without God, this spiritual disease causes your friendships to be transactional. And yes, the moral of the story with the friend that I thought was a friend, we had a long working relationship, but I still thought it was friendships. I'll be honest, I'm an honest person. The working relationship wasn't great, but my love for my brother it kept the relationship going for years, okay? I fought for my brother, but when it's not reciprocated, nothing at all, and it has to end, the business side has to end, just like I thought everything ended. Never heard from the guy again. You understand? So that's a real situation in which I'm not going to say the brother don't have God, but the brother should probably realign or reassess his connection with God. Because when you tapped in, you don't treat people like throwaway people. And this is not a person that I need for anything functional. I don't need this person for money. I don't need this person for this. I desire my relationship, my bond, my brotherhood with him. Because he is a good man. He's a solid dude, okay? But unfortunately, he did not view me in the same light. And that's, you know, That's okay. But an honest man, honest with himself and very confident in who he is and how he moves, is not going to be ambiguous about where he stands with another man. He's not going to pretend to be a brother if it's just a transactional relationship. If something is transactional between me, first of all, I tend to not do anything transactional. But if it is, there's plenty of people, I'm sure there's people that you can find that has said to me, I thought we were friends. I'm like, sir, we're not friends. I've told people that, and I'm not being mean, but sometimes I've been backed into a corner to where I have to be extremely honest in a way that's going to hurt your feelings. And I tell people, like, sir, we're cordial, but we're not friends. We don't know each other that well. We don't call each other, like, what are you talking about? We're not friends. That isn't a dear term. That is a special bond and connection between people, and I don't take that lightly. God, the knowledge of God, and being in counsel with others who acknowledge the knowledge of God, your relationships be solid, straight up, okay? Now, not being in a situation to where when the utility runs out, no more relationship. It's not the vibration. Look at all of the divorces. America has one of the highest divorce rates in the world. They're all downstream from a metaphysics that is not examined. Culture. This costs the culture. A culture without a common ground beneath the surface cannot agree on what a man is, what a woman is. You see it right before your eyes, right? It can't agree on what justice is, excuse me, what childhood requires, what a community owes its weakest members. We're living in that exact collapse right now. It's all around us. The categories themselves are dissolving in real time. People shout at each other. Look at the internet. It's crazy. Listen, if any of y'all argue with other people on the internet in comments, why? You are not being effective. You are not changing the hearts and the minds of anybody getting testy in comments, especially if you're yapping about God and Jesus and Allah and all of this stuff in somebody's comments. What you're doing is allowing your emotions to just run rampant. You look crazy, and whatever you think you're representing, you're making it look bad. You're making it look terrible. Stop it. Delete the comment. It's childish. It shows such a lack of restraint. Civilizational cost. Civilizations are built on shared answers to the deepest questions. When those answers go away, those civilizations go away as well. Rome didn't fall because the barbarians were just so strong, right? Rome fell because they had a weird system of spirituality, okay? They had a god for everything. Rome fell because the Romans had forgotten what they stood for. We're watching the same forgetting in our own time right here in the empire called the United States of America. The signs are everywhere. Wherever you stand, you can look around and see the signs. They're everywhere. So this is the diagnosis, ladies and gentlemen, is metaphysical sleep, the worship of dependent things, right? The loss of moral ground and the slow rot of every layer of downstream of that loss. We literally in it. And the disease is not in the news cycle. It is the news cycle. The disease is the foundation, right? We have a generation of men who have never been taught that there is even a foundation that they're standing on, right? Much less how to study it. That is why we're here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, to wake up, to trace the claim, to look at what holds everything else up, to meet the reality that has been holding you all along while you're too busy chasing leads. Now, I've given the diagnosis. I've named the disease. Now I'm about to give you the medicine, okay? 4 proof lanes. 4 proof lanes. Each one is independent. Each one strong enough to stand on its own. Taken together, they make the conclusion undeniable for any honest mind. All right? We're going to walk through each one of them in order. Existence, order, consciousness, and morality. Now, listen, while I was working on this talk tonight, and listen, I like talking about this topic because I study this topic a lot. And sometimes in my mind, it's like, I don't know, that might be a little too deep, too heavy. You need it. We need it. If you don't understand everything that we're talking about, if you notice I'm talking slow, I'm talking deliberate, I really want to land plane, and inshallah I'll do that. But this video will be up on the channel, so it'll always be there, okay? So you can play it back. You can even copy it, take the link, and put it in AI and say, give me a breakdown of this, okay? Study, okay? So I'm giving y'all a lot of information, and I trust that you can handle it. I think that the audience, the tribe that we have here is a tribe of intelligent people, of smart people, spiritually grounded people, seekers of truth and of light. I think that's y'all. I'm certain that's y'all. Or else why would you be here? Okay? This is not a gossip. This is not a gossip channel. This is a channel for intelligent people like yourselves. Okay? Now, we're going to talk about existence, order, consciousness, and morality. So first is the proof of existence. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Proof from existence. Our existence gives proof. Let's think about that. Start with the most basic fact that you know. Something exists. You exist, right? The room exists. The universe exists. Whatever you think about these things, you cannot deny that there are these things, there is being rather than nothing. They're here, right? We're here. Now ask yourself the only question worth asking. Why are we here? Why? The universe now is not self-explanatory, but the universe, it did begin, okay? It hasn't always been here. So modern cosmology, they're clear on this fact. The cosmic background radiation, the redshift of distant galaxies, the second law of thermodynamics, energy can't be destroyed, they all point to a finite past, a starting point. There was a state in which there was no universe. Then there was a universe. So something happened. Something caused the transition of there being nothing within this universe to there being a universe. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. It's not even funny. Every scientific investigation operates on this principle, from medicine to physics. No physicist publishes a paper saying the data appeared from nothing for no reason. That would be preposterous, wouldn't it be? We assume cause. We hunt for cause. We trust cause. The day we stop trusting cause is the day that science itself is not, it can't be taken serious. The cause of the universe cannot be a part of the universe. Nothing can cause itself. The universe cannot bring itself into being from non-existence, because to do that, it would already have to exist, which means it would not need to be brought into existence because it is there. The cause of the universe must be outside of the universe, beyond space, because think about it, space, it began with the universe. It's part of the universe, is inside of the universe, is beyond time, because time, as we know it, began with the universe, beyond matter. You know what I want to say? Matter began with the universe. The cause must be immaterial. The cause must be spaceless. The cause must be timeless, immensely powerful, and personal. Yes, personal. Only a personal being can choose to bring something into existence at one moment rather than another. An impersonal force would either always cause the universe or never cause the universe, because, neither matches what we can observe. Now, Allah is what we call that cause, a personal being with intention and with power, the necessary being who brought the contingent universe into being out of nothing by his will and at the moment that he chose. Proof of order. The universe exists with not just structure, with very specific structure, with unreasonably precise mathematics. The universe is intelligible. Mathematics work. The same equations that describe the orbit of electrons describe the orbit of a planet, scaled proportionately and appropriately. The constants of physics are calibrated to a precision that staggers the mind. Unreasonably precise. Change the strength of gravity by 1 part in 10 to the 60th power. That's the tiniest of tiny. And guess what happens? No stars, no galaxies are formed, nothing, right? And then there's a term called the strong nuclear force by a few percent, and no atoms will coalesce. No atoms would bond together, right? Change the cosmological constant by an unimaginably small fraction and the universe collapse on itself, or it just never develops. This is the testimony of modern physics. Atheist physics. It's interesting that there are a good amount of atheists in physics. They call it fine-tune. They call it a fine-tuning problem. It's a problem. They call it a problem because the precision is so extreme, it demands explanation. They say it's random, but it just can't be random. So it's a problem. They don't want to say God, though. This is a problem. Their leading answer is to posit infinite parallel universes that has never been observed. Come on, man. Infinite parallel universes that's never been observed and never can be observed. All right, so we got to shut up now. Because the scientists said, come on, man. What are we talking about? Y'all let these people get degrees and all of this stuff and make them, they can bombard you with rhetoric and fancy words. I don't care about that. Who cares? Listen, this thing we're talking about here, look, Allah existed before everything. Islam is 1400 years ago. Islam is the final revelation. But it's been here longer than that. Let's say it did start. The system of Islam, the last revelation started 1400 years ago. Islam started before the beginning of time. But let's say it just started 1400 years ago. It existed before science. There were civilizations before science. Greater civilizations than what we have now. Before science. So why are y'all putting so much into these people? And I have no disrespect or, towards science. We need them. They're very instrumental in us understanding reality. But they're not infallible. They're not perfect. They're not all wise, okay? So their leading answer is not very logical, okay? Infinite parallel universes that we've never seen and we never can see, right? So that when you posit something I think is absurd is that nobody can question you anymore. That's it. It doesn't require a cause. Notice the move, though. The unbeliever, they will invent an infinite number of unseen universes to avoid the unseen God. And ladies and gentlemen, there's no such thing as infinity. It's a logical impossibility for anything to be infinite. Just letting you know. Look it up. Think about the DNA in your cells, right? It stores information using 4-letter alphabet, transcribed, translated, error corrected. You have error correcting code in your body. And then it's proofread by molecular machines that human engineers cannot replace. They cannot replicate. The simplest functional cell contains more functional capability and complexity than the entire human technological inventory in your body. Blind chaos does not produce sustained intelligibility. Order is the fingerprint of intelligence. Order is the fingerprint of intelligence. The universe wears that fingerprint on every surface, from orbit of the galaxies to the structure of a leaf. Listen to me, y'all, please, dear brothers and sisters. Science reveals a universe saturated with order, and order is what we expect if reality came from intelligence, right? The point of this proof, it rests on what science actually knows, okay? So not on the granular detail of any one religion. The man who looks at the cosmos and sees only accident is averting his eyes. Let's talk about proof from consciousness. This is crazy we still talking about this. You are conscious right now. You are listening to me speak. You're watching me through the screen. You experience everything from the inside, okay? There is something it is like you to be listening to these words that I'm speaking. The neurons in your brain is firing. The chemicals are doing their work, yeah. But the meaning, the experience, that's the actual meaning. The felt sense of understanding, the inner witness who knows that you're listening and not just processing something else. Some of y'all, these words are really registering, right? You like, I feel that, I thought that, right? Matter can be described from the outside. You can describe a brain in terms of neurons, the weight of it, the electrical activity in it, but you can never describe a mind in that way. Brain and mind is not the same. The mind is the spirit of the brain, the life of the brain. A thought has meaning that is not reducible to its physical substrate to its container. Love is not exhausted by the chemistry of love. Beauty is not exhausted by the wavelengths of light. Guilt is not exalted by the firing of certain circuits in the brain. The chemicals are the instrument. The music, that's something else. The chemicals are the instrument. The sounds are the instrument, right? But for it to come together as poetry, oratorically, audibly, visually, even physically, what is that? Random? Everybody's just random? If I tell you love is only chemicals, I've described one layer of the process. That's it. I have not exhausted the reality of love. If I tell you thought involves neurons, I've only described the instrument, right? I have not explained the inner witness. The hardest problem in philosophy of mine is this exact gap that exists. The material has always been trying to close it forever, but the more you describe it, you widen that gap. A universe of pure matter has no place for consciousness. Why? Consciousness shows up anyway. The cleanest explanation is that reality has a layer beneath it. That deeper layer carries the property of awareness. We have minds because the source has mind. We're conscious because the necessary being is conscious. Our small witness is a borrowed echo of the great witness who sees all things at once. Then we have proof from morality. Where do you think morality comes from? You believe certain things are just wrong, right? It's just inherently wrong. It's not unpopular. It's not inconvenient. It's objectively wrong. It's fucking wrong. Okay? The torture of a child for entertainment for any reason is wrong, right? Harming children is wrong. The grape of a woman, wrong. Or of a man, wrong. The grape of anybody is wrong. The cruelty of the strong against the helpless is wrong. You hold these things under a standard, right? And the standard does not bend when culture changes. Wrong is wrong. Now ask, where does that standard come from? If the universe is only matter, morality is a preference. It's a decision, okay? It's not good or bad. It's a preference. The man who tortures a child is rearranging matter differently from the man who rescues a child. That's it. It's merely that. That's it. And it should be okay if the universe is matter only. The universe don't care if you torture a child or is nice to a child. It doesn't matter. The atoms, they don't vote. There's no court above human opinion. Now, almost no one can live as if this is true. You believe or you behave as if, moral reality is real. You condemn evil when it benefits you to tolerate it, right? You protect the weak even when they have nothing in common with your ancestry, your DNA, or whatever, right? You reach in the deepest part of you for a standard above yourself. That reaching is not a malfunction, ladies and gentlemen. That reaching is a witness. It testifies like a shahid that moral law is real because the moral lawgiver is real. Allah grounds moral reality. Allah makes justice more than opinion. Allah makes accountability more than social consequence. Without Allah, in the end, the rapist gets away with it. The dictator dies in his bed. It's okay. The tortured children, they have no advocate, right? There is no court of a final appeal, if that's the case. The universe is just morally bankrupt. Almost no human being can actually live as if this is the case. You can't and you won't. You won't. You can't. We all reach for the standard. The standard is real because the source of the standard is real. Connecting proof to necessity is a necessity. Take the 4 proofs that we just discussed, right? Put it together. Feel the weight of the conclusion. Without Allah, existence has no foundation. The universe, it simply is for no reason, for no cause. Without Allah, order has no source, right? The fine-tuning is luck on a scale that defeats the meaning of the word luck, okay? Without Allah, consciousness has no explanation. The inner witness is just an illusion that somehow knows that it's an illusion. Without Allah, morality has no authority. Justice is the preference of the strongest tribe. Survival of the fit is the law. Without Allah, purpose has no anchor. Your life is a brief flicker between two darknesses, and the flicker means nada. That's what you want? I mean, you can still live that life. You can still make money. You can get swole, build muscle. You can fall in love. You can raise children. Metaphysically, you're floating. Metaphysically, you're floating. You are walking on water and pretending that it is the ground. The day the floor cracks, the one day that it cracks, for every man, you will have nothing underneath you. Nothing. So we could take this now from reason. I gave you out a lot of reason and facts. We go from reason to revelation now. Reason, it has carried us this far. Reason can prove that Allah must exist. This is reason. This is logic. Reason cannot tell you what Allah wants from you. For that, you need revelation. The Arabic word for revelation is wahy, U-A-H-Y. Revelation is knowledge from Allah to humanity that we could not produce for reason alone. Reason points to the existence of Allah. Revelation tells you how to live before Allah. Reason brings you the door. Revelation tells you how to enter the room. Now, revelation comes through a prophet. It always has. That's the way it is. The Arabic word is Nabi, N-A-B-I, a prophet, not a fortune teller, a prophet, a chosen messenger who receives revelation and calls people back to truth. It calls people back to worship, to justice, to obedience to God. Every major religious tradition acknowledges that such messengers came. This disagreement, the only disagreement is basically over, who were the actual prophets and what was the actual revelation that they delivered. Now, in Islam, the final and complete revelation is the Quran. The Arabic word Quran means recitation. It is the revealed speech of Allah, given through the angel Jibril or Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. For 23 years is the amount of time it took for him to receive the revelation of the Quran. In the 7th century in the Arabian Peninsula. The phrase, peace be upon him, is what Muslims say after mentioning the Prophet, a sign of respect and a sign of honor. And we actually say we give the peace, the salams to every prophet when mentioning their names. The Quran asks you to use your reason. The first thing Allah commands us to do is ikra. That means read. Allah doesn't ask us in Allah's final revelation. He didn't say blindly believe. He said read. Use your reason. Does that sound like the spiritual system that you grew up with? Well, what does this mean and what does that mean? You just gotta believe. God is mysterious. God comes in mysterious ways, works in mysterious ways. You probably asked that question as a child and you probably got that kind of answer. And I'm sure if you're like me, you're like, what? Why can't I understand? Why would God not want me to understand? God does want you. You just didn't know that about this revelation, this final revelation to you called the Quran. You didn't know. Because God wants you to know. He's not going to say, hey, just believe. I'm mysterious. Don't worry about it. He says, ikra, read, use your reason. God tells us that in the Quran. Okay? Did y'all know that? But now you know. The Quran asks you, it tells you to use your reason. It tells you to look at the heavens and the earth. And it tells you to consider how you were created. Think about this. Think about how you're created. It tells you to examine yourself. It tells you to think. It tells you to recall reasons, a gift, and call those who refuse to use it the worst creations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who don't use reason are the worst of my creations. Wants you to be smart. Allah wants you to question everything, okay? This is the only major scripture that opens its argument by demanding the reader to investigate. It doesn't pump fear, just believe or else. Investigate, read, use reason. If you don't use reason, you're the worst of creation. That's what the Quran tells you to do. Tonight, we settle that revelation is necessary, because it is. Which book actually carries the true revelation is the next investigation. We're going to get into that on another episode if y'all want that. That's beyond the scope of this particular talk. If Allah is real, he is not silent, right? If he created beings with minds capable of asking questions, he would not abandon them to guess at the answer. He's giving you revelation. The same logic that demands a necessary being, the identification of the answer is the work that follows. Okay. I really pray and hope that this landed with y'all. Okay. I get great joy out of speaking with y'all and building with y'all. I really hope this lands. This will be on the channel later tonight. Thank you for rocking with us and vibing with us. Listen, everybody in here, understand this. I will be doing a workshop pretty soon. So this will probably be the last live until that workshop. We're doing a workshop. It's called the 4 Pillars, right? The 4 Pillars. The workshop is everything that I do in my role here is to men, but women are welcome to. Is nothing inappropriate we're talking about. Are welcome to join, but it's specifically for men, for masculinity, because masculinity is an essence that's okay, that's divine, and the society has strayed away from it. The society don't want masculine men. It want docile, soft men, and we're not with that. So we will be discussing, I'm going deep into the body, into the mind, the spirit, and the money. 4 pillars, okay? Stay tuned. I will give y'all information on the workshop. And then from there, everybody in Sacred, y'all see I'm not super active in there. Brother Ricky is, but I am taking notes of everything. I am preparing for the event, and then after that, everything is going to be in Sacred, not here. Okay? So this may be the last talk until after the event, and the event will be in about 3 weeks or so. All right? I appreciate y'all. Peace. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.